Good morning, Voyagers. I'm the last Omnitect, your favorite robot American, and welcome to another episode of Omni Draws Gentry Delon Ain't No Fascist. Yeah, I am pleased as punch to be here, folks, and I genuinely hope you're all doing well enough. So, let's pop from here right into it. As my webcam refuses to turn on. There we are. Wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't have at least a good odd 30-second pause where my camera wasn't working. Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing well today. It is a beautiful Thursday. Right now in White River Junction, we are currently dead of summer. Actually, starting to get towards the beginning of fall, aren't we? Last check, temperature is 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And a lovely overcast day. I hope your days have all been wonderful so far. And so without further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Alright. Last time we were playing around, you guys might have noticed that we got a little bit done. We got a fair bit done, actually. So let's hop on over and take a look at it. Beautiful stuff, ain't it? So last episode, we made the Kelpie, which is a sort of my take on a stalker, in a way. Like a slightly stalker-ish kind of doodad. Basically, I wanted to take the idea of what if the stalker's sole job wasn't to actually kill you before you get to the hive, but waste your time. Helldiver ops only operate in like frames of 20, 30, at most 40 minutes, maybe. They don't leave a lot of time for operations, with the understanding that, you know, if you fail, oh well, you leave them behind, you drop new ones. This does mean that time isn't on the Helldiver's side. So the idea of the Kelpie was that the emissaries, or at least the emissary strain, working with the Terminid Restoration Alliance, a Terminid conservation group that used to be scientists learning to exploit them better and ended up accidentally realizing that they were somewhat sapient. They kind of need all the time they can to either help evacuate any sites the TRA might be squatting in, or any hives that might be there, but also a great way to lure Helldivers into traps and allow the Terminids a chance to sort of organize around them. Basically, we're going with Terminids that are smarter than the average Terminid. Hilariously, though, if there is one thing I didn't expect, it was actually the happening of this new war bond that's been coming out. I didn't expect this new Terminid war bond. Namely, I believe, what is it called again? It was like a particular, the name of this new one. It's Into the Unjust Deep Hive. I didn't expect that, actually, at all. The idea of, like, subterranean battles, but not just that, but also the types of enemies that they'll be fighting, I wasn't planning for. Namely, the burrowing part. For those of you who are not familiar with what's been going on with Helldivers lately, or you don't play the game, let me show you. So, in the latest dev drop, they did this little bit. I want to share it with you guys all because I think it's relevant. Let's just unmute it so you all can hear it a little bit. Here we are.
With new subterranean environments, we of course have to have subterranean species.
Right.
We have new enemies that burrow into the ground and erupt beneath the player's feet.
So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with what I've been doing in the webcomic lately, you'll know that it's hilariously close to what I've been doing in regards to, like, say, as an example, oh, I don't know, the Myrmidons, whose whole thing is ambushing from terrain. So, there we go. I was wondering why that wasn't popping up. So, let me turn off the Kelpie here. So the entire thing of the Myrmidon is it hides underground and it erupts out and lashes at vehicles. I kind of already started doing this. And then they release an entire like a new part of the of Helldivers 2 into the Unjust Deep Hive, where I was planning to go with the Terminid Restoration Alliance and the Emissary Swarm, Emissary Strain. So I don't feel particularly bad about doing this. And anyway now, if anyone's like, oh, you're fan making, yes, apparently close enough to what the developers are thinking, where we have the same brain parts. And you can check timing this video right now, and I'm actually gonna just like triple check this, just to be completely certain I'm not off base. Before the launch of this, the Even More Bugs section, the first one that I did where I started doing like subterranean bugs was, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in close enough where you guys can actually see it. Hang on. I'm going to see if we can do it actually. Ah, okay. Bugs. I got it. Alright. So for those of you who are curious, this, effective today, August 28th, right there, on that bottom there, you can see streamed 2 weeks ago. And as far as the Into the Unjust Hive goes, this was dropped into the Unjust Deep Hive 2 days ago. Great minds think alike, right? That's how it always tends to go. So we're here to, one, celebrate this new thing that's coming out, but two, also to just sort of enjoy it, right? Like, I'm not upset. I'm actually finding this kind of funny. And so here we are. Now, we've done the Myrmidons so far. We've done a little bit about the Partisans, who are kind of the folks that fight with them. And we've done the Kelpie. So if the Myrmidon is kind of a ambushing cross between a, I guess it would be a Charger and a Hive Guard, and the Kelpie is a cross between a Stalker and a, what's it called again, Hunter, sort of between the two of them with a burrowing tendency on it. We need to make a couple new things to cover the Hive. Beyond like the normal Terminid stuff, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. Some stuff the Hive already has. They already have Stalkers. They probably have, actually they might not even have Stalkers normally. They might have Kelpies, specifically Kelpies. They do have Hive Guard. They do have Warriors. I haven't done anything with the Spewers yet, but I think that's because I don't think we need to change much about the Spewers. I think they're pretty much on point. And likewise also, I haven't done anything with Bile Titans yet, because I think the Bile Titan is perfect. I just need to get like a coloration on it that matches a little more of what the Emissary Hive has, and we've nailed it. I might make it where they breathe like more napalm than acid, but we'll see how that goes. I'm still vibing that out. But that does leave us with a couple of other things that we haven't really touched on. So I'm thinking that today we need to talk about flyers. So one of the things that got dropped in the into the Unjust Deep Hive is the spoiling of a new enemy. And that new enemy, if I can again show this to you all, is called the Dragon. I love this thing. This is about the coolest thing I can think of. I love flying things. I desperately, when I wanted to play Tyranids, wanted to get together a force that was like at least a little bit of flyers and a lot of psychers. That was kind of my goal. What can I say? I'm a sucker for flying and psychic bugs. So what if we combine these things a little bit and do something with the Terminids we've never seen before? So I'm going to take out this here, and we're going to go to concept 5 here now. And I'm just going to have it unknown flyer. I'm not going to name it yet. We'll figure out what the name of this thing is going to be. Okay, so we're going to go into the text and just remove all of it. Or at least all of it that's actually text. So we can pop into the summary, remove the general details, the hiding part. Okay, so now we're in our summary section here. We have our text. So Emissary Strain, Terminid Morph. I don't know about the size or the height or anything on it. We're going to sort of play around with this. So, Flight. Fast Flying. And I feel like we'll leave Fast Moving, because we're past Disruptor now. Now we're at the part where we need to kill Helldivers. We've already talked about how the Terminid Swarm, how this particular Emissary Swarm works so far. We have ourselves smaller Terminids, which tend to hold things in position and disorganize the attacking Helldivers. Their whole thing is to disrupt and attack from below, but also to sort of pin Helldivers in place, whether that be to pull them out of position by Kelpies, luring them way far away, with the ambush of what seems to be a stalker, but is actually basically just a lure to drag them away, to the Myrmidons, whose whole thing is to ambush vehicles, rip apart their cavalry and their vehicular support, which doesn't really allow them a method of attacking us. So we need another option. We need another defense. Here's where I'm thinking. We need a hammer blow. If the partisans who do this work are kind of like the ranged killing power that you would expect for the people on foot, they're still not skilled enough to really take down Helldivers reliably. Even with anti-material rifles and break-action shotguns, it's powerful enough to kill a Helldiver for sure, but they're fighting far more skilled combatants. Even the most poorly trained Helldiver is significantly more skilled than I imagine most civilians would be. Especially, well, 50-50, but definitely better equipped. Definitely better equipped. Having played through the introduction section of Helldivers 2, I'm not sure we can in good faith say how much better trained Helldivers are than the average citizenry, but 100% better equipped. We need a Hail Mary pass. We need a weapon to kill Helldivers. We need monsters. And that is where we're going to come here. So at the moment, Partisans, Myrmidons, and Kelpies help pin and distract enemy Helldivers. What we need now, as I turn the summary on and move all this other stuff, so we just have like the general text, we now need a flyer. So as far as what we're going to call this thing, I think I'm going to call it a Shrike. So, Shrikes are fantastically interesting birds. Horrifying creatures, to be completely honest, but I dig them. So, the idea behind a Shrike is it's a bird that impales its prey on thorns, usually. They tend to live in brambles or off of trees with particularly sharp thorns, rose bushes, stuff like that. They'll hunt prey, usually lizards, frogs, insects, and as opposed to eating them immediately, if they get full, they just kind of stab it into their nest or into the bushes and the brambles around them and use it to sort of dry them out and preserve them, at which point they come back and eat them later as they will. It's a very Vlad Tepish kind of bird, if you catch my drift with that. So let's call these things Shrikes. So let's take a moment here. I don't see exactly how big the Shrike is by comparison to a person on foot, but I presume they're large. Also, we've now seen the beginnings of what appear to be Hive Lords re-emerging. Okay, so this thing appears to be about as big as a Bile Titan. I just took a look at this using the actual footage from Helldivers. So this thing appears to be roughly the size of a Bile Titan. If we're going by the overhead shot of how big that thing is, yeah, it's about a Bile Titan, give or take. And that gives us our best look at it. So 6 segmented legs plus 2 wings. Technically, this would be a decapod, not a hexapod like most insects or terminids are. This is a decapod, which is interesting. It's not a dodecapod, so it's not a crab. But it's something akin to it. So, we're going to run with this. I'm going to start by opening up this tab We're gonna go through here, we're gonna just kill every single layer we can. There's our shadow, and there's our general shape layer, which is the only thing left. Good. We need that. We also need to take our, like, little buddy here on the side, which this, I believe, falls under the swatches. Where is he? Where is this guy? Partisan to scale. There we go. Okay. So if this guy is as big as he looks, we gotta shrink our buddy here even further. We need a hammer blow. So here's my thought. Terminids already play with acid regularly. They play with, like, because I think there's like acid, and then there's like another one which is like corrosion. Technically, they're two different things. If you've ever played the game, you'll know there's acid rain, and then there's the acid the Terminids spit. It's like caustic versus acid, or corrosion versus acid. I don't know the exact way to describe it, but these don't do the same thing. Acid in-game mechanics reduces your armor significantly, about halves it, give or take. Terminid spew slows you if it hits you. It's like a crackling, burning thing. It forces you to slow down. It's great for immobilizing you. Things we haven't seen yet. Fire and arc. We have not seen electrical attacks, and we have not seen fire-based attacks from the Terminids. Not yet. My thought, what if we throw my pencil here? What if we have ourselves a creature that uses electrical power in its attacks? That could be interesting. So, let's take our general shape layer and let's get to doodling here. We're going to start with a creature that is roughly on scale with our new dragon friend. And I want to make sure we got plenty of room for the wings here. We're going to make sure this is the right type of brush. Cool. So we got our angle here kind of just a little off. And we're just going to sort of take that in a little further. So my thought is this. We take a Terminid and have it create a static charge. Now, we haven't talked too much about it yet, but as it stands, when Terminids burrow, we don't really discuss how that occurs, just that they dig. We presume like ants, which makes sense as to how fast they move, because they can move pretty quickly underground, which implies they're burrowing. They basically have burrowed the entire under area of where the operations are, and like a giant ant nest, they're more or less sort of following the pheromones of the creatures on the surface. What if we take it a step further? You see, people don't really think about it, but when you dig underground, you're displacing a great deal of matter. Like, an insane amount of matter. And as a result, you really need to have, like, some kind of method of distributing the static electricity. This is where we come in, with our bug. Our bug captures that static electricity. Let's take this and slightly shrink it down just a hair more. There we go. So this bug captures the static and uses it, weaponizes it as a tool. Now there's a couple ways of creatures capturing and utilizing static electricity, but not very often is this done in nature because it's a very specific, like, manipulation of physics. It doesn't really come into play very much evolutionarily, but we're talking about a creature as big as a Bile Titan, sprinting around underground at high speed, then emerging to terrorize. So my thought is, what if this creature here actually has an ability to capture that electricity? So we're going to go with the usual Bile Titan mouth, kind of vibe that out a little more. Okay, so we've got a pretty good design here, and I'm going to go for that same kind of thorny look that I got on all the other ones. So my thought is this. This thing's got massive talons on the front, but then, on its back, it's going to have tendrils. That feels like that's a pretty decent evolutionary trait. Very common in terminids and insects is the ability to create, like, tendrils. This is me taking a look at how these wings are shaped. Usually they have, like, a second kind of wing thing here, and then it sort of comes back. There we go. We'll do the same thing up here. So my thought is, this particular terminid uses these tendrils to capture the static electricity of all the displaced Earth that it moves, and then weaponizes it against its foes, creating kind of like a natural biological Tesla coil. Anytime anything gets near one of them, it gets shocked. Which seems like a pretty effective defense against any kind of anti-air weapon or something. If you have like a commando or an EATS flying too close to it, it'll actually get just zapped out of the sky. Its electronics fried. We need to make this an even bigger scale. Okay, let's take this thing. We're going to take our partisan to scale. We're going to shrink him even more. That's about right. That's the approximate size of what we're going for. And let's shrink him even more now, because we got to shrink the size of this thing. Because we got to get that tail section in. There we go. That's a little more like it. That'll give us enough space to actually do what we need to do. Cool. Let's have it flying, too. I kind of like that idea. We're going to take this. And we'll put it down here. And save our file so we don't lose it. Because I'll be very angry if we lose our data. Okay. So we got our general shape now. Let's keep going. I'm not quite done yet. So I like the idea that this thing has a very long lower body, the very long abdomen, and then instead of just like legs of the traditional type, instead it has these long tendrils, which accumulate electricity as they fly and as they move through the dirt. We'll do the same thing on the other side. It's probably got another leg like that. And then its long, sinewy kind of tail. It sort of ropes in from behind. You can sort of see this structure I'm going for here. Which would be both an excellent weapon and a good bludgeoning tool. Let's make it even small. Let's actually make it smaller. As opposed to a big sinewy tail, what if we literally made it like like some sort of living biological stinger, but like in this case, almost a conductive one. And then we can just sort of pull that up, change the shape as we go, and there we have it. This large, terrifying creature. It's meant to horrify and batter the hell out of ground forces. We need to do a little work on the head, though. So let's take the head. We're gonna sort of keep that, like, bile-tightening kind of, like, back of the mouth thing going. And then it opens nice and wide. That feels pretty good. So that's our head locking into the neck. This thing is going to need eyes. So where are we going to put the eyes? What if we put the eyes, instead of back where the acid sacs are, we put the eyes there? I kind of like that idea. That gives us a nice, wide field of vision. And gives us the ability to strike damn near anywhere. Very nice. I like that. Okay. That works. So, I like the idea that this thing... Because the stinger would be like a fun way to do the arc to differentiate it from, like, a normal one of these creatures that spews acid from its mouth. But then I think about it like, how fast would it be able to conduct electricity? It'd probably be pretty quick. Its rear limbs would be very fast, capable of lashing out and slapping at things if they need to. Like a giant whip, which would be horrifying. But the ability to conduct electricity doesn't come from the head, where the brain is. It comes from the tail. So these things sort of fly like hornets, almost. Anyone's ever seen, like, the way that they animate Beedrill flying? Where they kind of got their, like... They kind of got their butts going first. Very much like a, well, very much like an actual bee, I feel. That's kind of what we're looking for, right? So, same thing here. These things, when they're attacking or they're flying, they're very much flying sort of wings first, as it were. Or I should say wings last, butt first, as they move about. That, to me, seems like the easy way to see how they would move. So I think that's what we'll do. They've got these big talons on the front for raking and stabbing vehicles, crushing helldivers. I kind of like the idea that they can conduct electricity to their whole bodies, but namely of their extremities that aren't their wings and their head. The wings are too delicate. The head is where the brains live. In electricity plus neurological tissue does not a good day make for the average person, let alone a bug. See bug zappers. So I think what I'll do is I'm gonna just pull that, exit out, and move it over here. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. That's gonna be the head study, and I'm gonna put this a little separately. this thing, pull it up even higher to sort of give it that height that it's supposed to have. We can move the head study layer a little bit more inward. And I can sort of have like a little aside about it here. So now we got our general shape. This will give us a little more, like, clarity for what the actual, like, tail looks like. Okay, so we have that, now we have the actual, like, limbs where they have, like, those sort of tendril-like ropes. Go all the way down here. Then we'll literally have it where it, like, trails behind. And then on the other side, we do the same thing here. Trail way far behind this terminate. I figure this guy has literally meters and meters of rope. This thing normally doesn't fly high enough where it's able to really have to worry about that. It has like little barbs at the end too. So you got this massive flying creature. So far we've named all these things after legendary species and creatures. We have the Kelpie, we have the Myrmidon. Let's go with a lightning creature. Lightning mythological. I wonder, I'm looking at some of these and I really don't want to like mess up the cultural background. So I'm preferably trying to go for like creatures that aren't going to fall too far out of like either Latin roots, where it's like Greco-Roman, where I don't feel particularly bad using that, because it's not a living culture in that respect. It's not a, you know, also the West largely descends from it, so anyone who wants to accuse me of that, fuck you. My ancestors suffered enough under colonial rule where I can take your shit. So, let's see. In this particular case, I'll try to do it respectfully. So that's not correct. In demonology. Oh, interesting. It's a demon. Oh, that's hilarious. That's even better. Because I was raised Catholic, which you know what that means? Fair game, baby! Fair game! It's mine. It's mine to do with as I please. So yes, that would be a great Earl of Hell, being ruler of 26 legions of demons, yada yada, the usual, like they'll throw whatever they want in here. Furfur causes love between a man and woman, creates storms, tempests, thunder, lightning, and teaches on secret and divine things. I like that. Depicted as a deer or winged deer, also an angel. Depending on the version. Where was this thing first coming from? Ah, there we go. It's okay, so this is from the Lesser Key of Solomon. Alright. This is like goetic demon stuff. So, again, I don't feel particularly bad about using this as, like, a former Roman Catholic. As far as I'm concerned, you know, this is my culture to mince. So here we go. We're going to use Furter, because the actual pronunciation of this cannot be Furfur. The name is so goofy. So you guys can actually see how it's spelled in the book. I'm going to just show you guys the page. The image of Furfur. There we go. Furfur! And that would be this thing. Which, I'm not gonna lie, actually kind of fits with what we're doing here. A flying creature that brings lightning, teaches secrets like the Emissary Swarm does, and on top of that, it's also, you know, a fun divine being. Creates storms, tempest, thunder, and lightning. Namely, lightning. I love that. Okay, so we're gonna, as opposed to calling him a Furfur, it's going to be Furter. Or Further. Fairther. I believe Fairther? That is a valid pronunciation of it. This is important to mention. Fairther. So Fairther. When you're dealing with, like, a lot of the old, what we would call apocryphal stuff in the ancient traditions of Christianity, you gotta be aware that, like, half of this shit is glorified fanfiction. If it's not in the original, like, if it's not in the codified, like, New Testament, it falls under what we would call apocryphal stuff. This is me as a former Catholic again, not practicing, not like an expert on any of it, but I figure I'll let you all in on it. So when you're dealing with this sort of thing, you are dealing with what is basically oftentimes people making up their own grimoire, their own, like, ideas around the faith and what they want to do with it. The lesser key of Solomon is about goetic, like demon summoning and that kind of thing. It's very much more the purview of, like, modern styles of, and by modern I mean more like modern than like the ancient, like, traditions of Christianity. We're talking like modern conceptions of alchemy and occultism than it has in like the old, real old methodologies. So again, I don't feel particularly bad using this for whatever the hell I want, because the people who made this used it for whatever the hell they wanted. So, the pronunciations will be varied and wild, and will change dramatically from person to person, as they have no fixed, like, pronunciation. There is no ancient text to go back to. Fun fact, this would put it roughly about as canonical as, like, Dante's Inferno, which, for the record, is apocryphal. It is not canon. It is literally a book written by a guy who wanted to put all the people he disliked in hell, and then wrote very creative ways to torture them. It was basically a classical take on what we would consider the, it's a classical take on what you and I would think of as, like, I have no mouth and I must scream. It's basically that. Okay, so here we have Further. We have a Further, which the Further are a particularly dangerous type of flying terminid specific to this. So terminid Further. So this thing is way bigger than 6 meters long. Your average, I shouldn't say your average, you're slightly above average human. Falls into 2 meters. It's roughly about 3 feet per meter, 2 meters, give or take, pretty average. This thing is significantly larger. So I could eyeball it and, like, you know, literally try it that way, but I think I have a better, more elegant solution. This is where things are going to get kind of silly. So this creature requires both a height measurement and a length measurement. I just happen to have a scale at the bottom left-hand side here. So I'm going to get out my ruler. I actually have a tape measure. This is what I get for being a tabletop wargaming dork. So my little buddy down there is actually 1 inch tall. Wow, that is like, it's literally 1 inch tall. So I can just measure the whole thing, and I will get height and width. So we go without the, or height and length. So if we're going to like the height of its wings, like its maximum, so let's see, wingspan, height, and length. So if we go to like the standard height of the carapace, where it normally sits, where it would stand when it's resting on the ground. This thing is roughly about 10 meters tall. So we're looking at 10 meters tall. I'm gonna pop this thing in. Hold on. There we go. 10 meters tall. 10 meters at shoulder. Wingspan. And then length. Length from, we'll say head to tendril tip length. Because we do gotta actually sort of stretch this out. This is our big Titan unit, so I feel zero compunction to not just go crazy with it. So if I again take this and measure out its maximum wingspan, which right now its wings are kind of like compacted in a little bit. It's got a little bit of like the hunching kind of thing. Just like my camera's apparently hunching. There we are. So it's got a little bit of like a crouched over sort of posture. It's literally flying in, flying backwards. So I'm gonna take the measurement according to like the width of the thing as best as I can. We'll do what we can. So, going about to its midpoint, this is about 6 inches. So if we duplicate that, that's 12 inches. 12 times 2 is 24. That tracks. Usually, wingspan should be significantly larger than your height. As a rule of thumb, usually your wingspan should be like ludicrously larger than. So we're looking at, this is, again, just to measure that out, just make sure I got that right. So it's 6, so 12, so 24. 24 meter wingspan. Which hilariously means this thing is twice as wide of a wingspan as your average modern F-16 Fighting Falcon. Which is kind of insane. It's actually almost double the length of an F-15 Strike Eagle. So that's pretty great, actually. We have to go with last generation aircraft, by the way. Modern generation aircraft have not been declassified yet. So we have our wingspan. Now we have head to tendril tip. To tendril tip. So if we go from head to tendril tip, I'm going to do my best to measure this out approximately. So it's going to be about 4 inches deep, and then at least twice as long for the rest of the body, so we're already up to 12 inches. But then we have the length of the tendrils, which I figure will be another 12 inches. It should be another 12 inches, given proportion. Okay. Yeah, these go pretty far back. So we're looking at 24 meters, or sorry, 24 times 2, 48 meters. That's kind of ludicrous, and I love that. 48 meter head to tendril tip length. Tip of head to tendril length. There we go. So this thing is massive. In fairness, its tendrils are very long and thin. Its actual, like, proper height is reflected at the 10 meters to the shoulder. So this thing stands pretty big. When I compare that to a current Terminid Bile Titan, and we look at the actual lore on how big this thing is, an approximation, Ah, Jesus, this thing is massive. It's a little shorter. Yeah, it's a little bit shorter than the, a little shorter than the actual Bile Titan is. But then again, the Bile Titan is a massive walking thing, and this thing is flying, which is all the more terrifying. This thing is definitely heavily armored. So, not fast-moving disruptor. Swift burrower. And flyer. Uses static buildup. Let's say weaponizes. Weaponizes static buildup. So I want to say shoots lightning. So I like that. We have this creature here that's doing something that no other Terminid has thus done. Attack with lightning. In short, what we're making here is Godzilla. And anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, well, first off, get thee to a theater, please. That's distressing beyond all reason. But yeah, we're talking like the lightning breath. Like kaiju lightning breath. Which is pretty classic stuff, actually. I'm really loving this. So we'll go with this general shape here. Let's get our shade layer going. Give me that. Thank you. So this thing's got this jaw. There we go. We have our jaws. Comes to this sharpened point. So I feel is kind of necessary to move underground at great speed. You need that sharpened jaw. Alright, and we're just going to sort of fill this all in. It also comes to a horn at the front. I like the idea of it maybe having like 2 horns on the sides. There we go. A little too far on that horn. There we go. We can sort of do the same thing here. Beautiful. As far as this thing's claws go, we're going to do the same thing we've done with the other members of the emissary strain. Just get these sharp hook-like projections. Just come all the way down, sort of terminates at the end here. Do the same thing with that, where it sort of comes to a sharpened point. And then towards the end, it sort of cuts off a little bit. I like the idea that this thing has kind of like retractable foreclaws. So that way it's not hurting its giant talons every time it lands. There we go. Not unlike a hornet or a wasp, where it's kind of got that stinger that it can sort of retract a little bit. In this case, so it can lay all of its weight on its really bulky forearms. Alright, there we go. Beautiful. So we've got ourselves a pretty solid silhouette now. Now we're not going to put too much in terms of like the actual shape here. We want to leave as much space as possible. For the arms to articulate. This is a flying creature after all. It's going to take a fair bit to actually move those wings. There we go. And this is us finally sort of laying out the actual shapes of what this would look like. And then it's got this one tendril coming off of here. And then sort of have this all coming back to about there. Let me pull these wings up. Leave as much space as we can. And this is why we do this. We do this particular task of, like, reworking some of the shapes precisely because you never know if you might want to revisit or redesign some of them or something. You never really can be certain until the deed is done that you're done with the actual task of designing something. There's always considerations that come up and stuff, and this kind of gets around that conveniently. And then at the very back, we have our heavy, thorny carapace. Sort of goes back. Now we're going to take these and extend them as far as we reasonably can. I want this thing to have a very seraphim, almost kind of like wing structure. Or at least seraphim as they're often modernly depicted with like the 6 wings and stuff. Which very much tracks with this thing having like an almost angelic kind of aura to it. It's meant to be this terrifying vector of death. So we're going to have one going there, one going there. And we'll just sort of pull that back this way. So this gives us our very serious silhouette. I'm actually really enjoying the way this thing looks. It turned out pretty much exactly like I hoped. More or less. Alright. We're going to get down here. this thing its lower legs. Sort of come out to about here. Kind of like the idea that, like, it has segmented knee parts here. That they're really just kind of for gripping. And then here we have at the very bottom this kind of gross, ropey, sort of tendrily situation that comes down. Which is where it gathers all the static electricity from. This is how it farms static when it's flying. It's literally trails a rope behind it. Drags it along the ground, like when you walk on the ground. You shuffle your feet wearing staticky cotton socks. This is basically this thing's cotton socks. And then finally we have our large abdominal area. Just gonna have our two kind of like pedipalps coming off of it. And then we do the same thing on the other side. And then this large stinger in the middle. I really like the way that's looking. That's looking great. It's looking absolutely great. I'm loving this. So let's get our swatches up here. We probably need to move those. We probably need to move these just a little bit. I'm going to save this fast. Cool. So this thing is saved. We're going to put this over where the actual, like, further text is for the moment. It just needs to be slightly out of the way so I can work with it. So we need to start with a darker carapace sort of shade to it. So we're going to call this our shape guide. Beautiful. Reduce the opacity on that to like 25, less than. There we go. Okay, let's get our shade layer going then. And also, I'm going to lower my blinds here for a second. It's very, very bright. Despite how cloudy it's been today, it's like ludicrously polarizing my glasses bright outside. There we go. So now I can actually sort of see what I'm doing. So let's get to the shape of this thing. So we're going to start with these tendrils on the front. These massive spines. It's almost got like a classic hive tyrant from like the Tyranids look to it. Which I kind of dig. It makes it look a little more characterful. Human, almost. We'll do the same thing on this side. There we go. Beautiful. Hope everyone's doing good out there, by the way. Please feel free to chat if anyone is out in the chat. I'm happy to always see you guys. Alright, so we've got a pretty good silhouette going here. This is going to be pretty, like, straightforward. Not too many bumps on this area. Then we're going to take this thorn here, sort of pull it out. Pardon. Pardon again. Oof. Allergies today. And apparently wrong pipes too. That's a fun combo. If you're watching this, have a drink. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now we've got these silhouettes for the upper arm carapace handled. We're not going to be able to finish this thing on stream. No way in hell. I am going to have to do this off stream. But you all will get to see the benefits later. So, I'm sure you won't mind that too much. Here we go. And we sort of do the same thing here. Sort of pull that up around the back. There's a little bulby area that's going to sort of jut out a tad. Beautiful. And that comes up and back. And then we have like a couple teeth in the middle, sort of. Beautiful. We have this sort of large area here. The side of the head is. We're going to get in there with some black so we can sort of pick apart the areas that aren't going to have as much focus on them. And then here we go. Swap that out so we can sort of sharpen this a little more. Beautiful. Cool. We'll do the same thing with the upper armor now. Now this is one of those fun moments you sort of get to really play around with the shapes. Because this is a creature that's both aerodynamic and, like, really craggly. So you get to sort of play around with it a tad, see what works. And we're just going to go in here with that, play around with the shape a little more, fill it in. And this is just a visual guide for me when I'm drawing in the webcomic later. And we have this here. Beautiful. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a crack there so I can work around it. Beautiful. And then finally, we add this last craggy part here. Sort of goes back and then over the back of the torso. Leave another little like crack so I can see what I'm doing later, so it's not just a solid wall of whatever. Cool. We got ourselves a pretty decent carapace for a pretty terrifying creature so far. Nice. Alrighty, Voyagers. We've been going on for about an hour and a half or so. I'm thinking I'm going to pop off here, and you guys will get to see this thing in the comics pretty soon. So, thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you, and I'll see you around, Voyagers. Peace.